Good to have you with us on a Thursday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for kicking your day off with us. We're going to begin this morning with the latest on the Trump team's campaign to rescue two of President-elect's controversial cabinet picks.
Vice President-elect J.D. Vance will be back on Capitol Hill today. He's arranging meetings between Mr. Trump's defense secretary pick, Pete Hegseth, and any Republican senators who could stand in the way of his confirmation. Vance did the same thing yesterday for Attorney General pick Matt Gaetz. There's at least one sign the meetings are helping. It appears for the former Florida Congressman, Gaetz has won the support of Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn. She posted on X that she had a great meeting, adding that she looks forward to a speedy confirmation for our next Attorney General. Over in the House, Republican and Democratic members of the evenly split House Ethics Committee, well, they're going to have to meet again. Yesterday, they deadlocked on a decision to release a report that details their years-long investigation into Gaetz over allegations of sexual misconduct and illicit drug use, allegations that Gaetz denies. He spoke to reporters late in the day about his meetings with senators and the Ethics Committee.
It's been going great. Senators have been giving me advice. I'm looking forward to a hearing. Folks have been very supportive. They've been saying we're going to get a fair process. So it's a great day of momentum for the Trump-Vance administration. I'll be honest with you. I've been focused on what we got to do to reform the Department of Justice. I've been meeting with senators. I haven't been paying much attention to that.
For more on what comes next, let's bring in NBC News correspondents Dasha Burns and Ali Vitale. Good morning.
Ali, let's start with you. What can you tell us about what happened in these closed-door meetings yesterday? And what is the Ethics Committee next move here?
Well, look, the Ethics Committee meets regularly, and I think we need to level set with everyone because we've been talking about the Ethics Committee a lot, but we have a weird and very abnormal amount of information about what they are actually doing behind closed doors. This is typically a committee that is shrouded in secrecy. Its members basically pledge to each other that they're not going to leak what happens behind closed doors and in their meetings. And so the fact that we knew that they were meeting yesterday, that they were talking about the Gaetz investigation, and ultimately what they decided or didn't decide to do, that's all very strange for Capitol Hill. And so once again, Matt Gaetz finds himself in the position of sort of tearing at the fabric of normalcy of what typically happens in the House of Representatives. What we know going forward is that the chairman of that committee, Mike Guest, said yesterday that the 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans basically stayed in their camps. Republicans didn't vote to release the Gaetz report. Democrats, it seems, did. Susan Wild, the ranking Democratic member of the committee, made clear that she didn't want people to think that just because they deadlocked on what to do didn't mean that there weren't people there who very much wanted to see this report get out into the public view. And so we'll watch them come back after Thanksgiving break. They'll have one of their regularly scheduled meetings, and you can only assume that this is going to remain an item of business on the docket. That being said, we also are going to expect to see movement on the full House floor. 2 Democratic congressmen put forward privileged resolutions, which means that they needed to be acted on within 2 legislative days. The clock is ticking on that, and basically those resolutions say, hey, let's all vote, the full collective House, on whether or not to release the Gaetz investigation. And I know, and you and I have talked about here, the many Republicans who would like to see Matt Gaetz's investigation made public, in large part because he didn't earn any friends when he ousted the former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy from his post. A lot of people still mad about that, and this could be a moment for, we're already talking about revenge quitting, revenge on their former colleague.
Good point, Ali. I know you've been speaking with Republicans about all this. Who have Matt Gaetz and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance been meeting with, and are these conversations doing enough to reassure senators, or do some of them still want to see that House ethics report?
Any of the reluctant senators that I was expecting to hear from after meetings yesterday really repeated the same phrase or general idea, which is that Matt Gaetz is going to get a fair process. He's going to go through the confirmation hearings, and we'll see where they land at that point. There are a few key things, though, trends to Gaetz's meeting. It might have just seemed like he was meeting with Republican senators yesterday, but he was actually focusing the bulk of his energy on Republican senators from the Senate Judiciary Committee. That is, of course, crucial, because if they do this through the normal process, Gaetz first has to get out of the committee before he can get the full Senate vote. And so while he was meeting with key people outside of that committee, I'm talking about the newly minted Majority Leader John Thune. I'm also talking about Senator Joni Ernst, who who has expressed some skepticism about Gates's nomination. He was mostly focusing his attention on meeting with people who are on the Judiciary Committee, like Marsha Blackburn, who you mentioned in your introduction. Blackburn, not entirely surprising that she would come around and say she was backing Gates. Also not surprising to hear that from other sort of Trump-aligned members of that committee. But Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina is on Judiciary. He has expressed reluctance. But when I asked him yesterday, how would you describe where you are on this process when it comes to Gates? He repeated the same line that we heard a lot yesterday, which is everyone gets to go through the process. Though Tillis made sure to point out he's been on this committee a long time. He said, I've taken meetings with Supreme Court nominees who I knew I was going to vote no on and who I did vote no on, but I still met with them. That might be an insight into where Tillis's head is at. It might not at all, but that is what the conversation looks like here. No one is outright saying this guy is an absolute no from me, at least not yet.
Dasha, let's bring you in here. Obviously, a lot of focus on Matt Gaetz, but he's not the only Trump cabinet pick that's facing some pushback. What's the latest on Defense Secretary pick Pete Hegseth?
Well, look, Joe, just as Pete Hegseth is about to get his turn on the Hill, making that push with lawmakers, overnight, a police report was released to the public. NBC News has not obtained a copy of it yet, but other outlets are reporting that it details sexual assault allegations from a woman who claims that in 2017, Pete Hegseth sexually assaulted her at a hotel in California. Now, the report provides competing narratives from both Hegseth and this woman, but it also provides interviews with a hotel staffer, a nurse, and another witness to the event. Now, Hegseth and his lawyer have denied the allegations that they say the encounter was consensual. No charges were ever filed, and Hegseth ended up paying the unnamed woman an undisclosed amount in a civil situation. Now, there are a number of other challenges Hegseth faces. He has also said some controversial comments about not thinking women should be in combat, about some of his time in the D.C. National Guard. But the Trump team has stuck with Hegseth. They, again, show no sign of wavering with that choice.
And Dasha, really quickly, while all this is happening, President-elect Trump does continue to turn out new names for the cabinet. What are we learning about this latest pick for U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker?
Well, Whitaker is someone who's been in Trump world for a long time. Trump sees him as extremely loyal, as he does with all of these picks. But he's an attorney. He was the former acting attorney general. We were reporting that he was in line as a potential pick for that role or other sort of more in line with his resume, more of the legal front. He does not have a lot of foreign policy experience. In fact, we don't really know where he stands on a lot of foreign policy issues. So a bit of a surprise that he ended up in that role, guys.
All right, Dasha and Allie covering the transition for us. Thank you both.
Let's stay in Washington, and we're going to turn now to a new rule on Capitol Hill that is bringing the fight over transgender rights into the halls of Congress. House Speaker Mike Johnson said on Wednesday that single-sex facilities in the Capitol would be available only to those of that biological sex, effectively banning Representative-elect Sarah McBride, the first openly transgender congresswoman, from using the women's bathrooms on the Hill. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has more.
This fight over trans rights was a big part of the 2024 campaign, and it has now come here to Capitol Hill.
Delaware's Sarah McBride made history in November, becoming the first openly trans woman to win a seat in Congress.
Thank you so much to the Congressional Progressive Caucus.
Her win came as Republicans made opposition to trans rights a major part of their campaign strategy.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
Now that fight is front and center on Capitol Hill.
This isn't manufactured. This is a real thing.
South Carolina's Nancy Mace, who broke ground herself as the first woman to graduate from the once all-male military academy, the Citadel, arguing that McBride should not be allowed to use women's restrooms on the Capitol complex.
Congressman-elect McBride already has a private restroom in their own office. There are unisex facilities throughout the Capitol.
It led to House Speaker Mike Johnson issuing a new policy that says restrooms, changing rooms, and locker rooms are, quote, reserved for individuals of that biological sex.
A man is a man and a woman is a woman, and a man cannot become a woman. But I also believe that we treat everybody with dignity.
This battle, a microcosm of the war raging across the country over trans rights, with Republicans pushing back on bathroom access, pronoun use, and health care for trans people.
They're endangering women, they're endangering girls of all kinds, and everybody should reject it. It's gross.
It's a fight McBride, who came to Congress to deal with economic and quality of life issues, did not intend on being the face of.
I'm not running to be the transgender member of Congress. I'm running to be Delaware's member of Congress.
And in a statement, McBride said that she did not come to Congress to fight over bathrooms, but that she'll abide by the Speaker's new rules, even if she doesn't agree with them.
Ryan, thank you.
Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is speaking out about President-elect Trump's choice to succeed him. Fox News personality Pete Hegseth has said, as Dasha just said, that he doesn't believe women should serve in combat. Austin addressed that as part of an exclusive interview with NBC's Courtney Cubie, where they also discussed the rapidly changing dynamics of the Ukraine-Russia conflict.
Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin weighing in on escalating tensions with Russia after the U.S. made the rare move to temporarily close its embassy in Kyiv amid a threat of a significant Russian air attack. And President Putin lowered the threshold for his country to use nuclear weapons.
Is there a reason to believe that Vladimir Putin may use a nuclear weapon?
We've known for several weeks that they were revamping their policy on use of nuclear weapons. I don't see an indication that there's an imminent intent to use nuclear weapons.
Is he bluffing with this change?
He has rattled his nuclear saber quite a bit, and this is dangerous behavior.
In his first interview since Donald Trump was elected again and chose media personality and veteran Pete Hegseth to take over the Pentagon, Austin addressed some of Hegseth's views.
Your possible successor has said that women should not serve in combat roles and they make fighting more complicated. Do you agree?
I have spent 41 years in uniform, and everywhere I went on a battlefield, there were women in our formation. I would tell you that our women are the finest troops that in the world.
Do you have any concern that women impact readiness of these units?
They do impact readiness. They make us better. They make us stronger. This is not hyperbole. This is fact. I'm just telling you what I've seen.
Your likely successor has also said recently the U.S. has to fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs because of his support for diversity initiatives. How would Captain Lloyd Austin have felt about a statement like that out of the incoming Secretary of Defense?
Captain Lloyd Austin would be very concerned. Courtney, I think it's important that young officers, young soldiers, young sergeants be able to see themselves in our senior leadership. This is the third time that I've served with General Brown directly. He's one of the most competent officers I've ever worked with.
I asked Secretary Austin if he thinks Pete Hegseth has what it takes to be Secretary of Defense, and he said he's never met him. Austin did acknowledge the U.S. decision to send anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine today, saying he thinks now is the right time to do so.
All right, Courtney, thank you.
Well, this morning there is justice for the family of nursing student Laken Riley, who was killed while on a run on the University of Georgia campus back in February. The undocumented immigrant accused of killing Riley was found guilty and sentenced to life without the possibility of parole yesterday. The case gained national attention, becoming a focal point in the debate on illegal immigration ahead of the presidential election. Here's NBC News correspondent Priya Sridhar with the details.
I'll now announce the verdict.
After a trial that lasted 4 days, 26-year-old Jose Ibarra sentenced to life without parole for the brutal killing of 22-year-old Laken Riley.
There is no end to the pain, suffering, and loss that we have experienced or will continue to endure.
Her family and loved ones emotional, seeing the police body camera video showing the moment Laken Riley's mother first learned her daughter died. Prosecutors say the nursing student was out for a morning jog on the University of Georgia campus in February when Ibarra, who was lurking in the woods nearby, attempted to rape her and then killed her.
Not only does the physical evidence identify him, the video evidence identifies him.
Despite numerous studies that indicate undocumented immigrants commit fewer crimes, the case has become a flashpoint in the national debate over immigration during the presidential election cycle. Ibarra, an undocumented immigrant from Venezuela.
Right here in Georgia, our nation was robbed of a brilliant 22-year-old nursing student, Laken Riley.
During the trial, the state presenting surveillance video showing Laken Riley's final moments, her last text message to her mother, and her attempt to call 911 before Ibarra attacked her.
She did fight, and it is a direct result of that fight that gives you all the physical evidence you need to convict him.
Prosecutors say Ibarra's DNA was found underneath Riley's fingernails, his thumbprint on her phone, and Riley's DNA on his jacket he wore when he committed the crime. Prosecutors say this surveillance video shows Ibarra discarding the jacket. The defense claiming the evidence was circumstantial and pointing the finger at Ibarra's brother. Riley's family remembering her as a kind, selfless, loving friend and daughter.
The best daughter, sister, granddaughter, friend, and overall person that you could ever hope to meet.
Our thanks to Priya Sridhar for that report. Well, after that guilty verdict, President-elect Trump reacted on Truth Social, calling for tighter security along the southern border to, quote, ensure that other families don't have to go through what they have.
As we head into the weekend, millions of Americans are bracing for brutal weather on both coasts. At least 2 people were killed by fallen trees in the Pacific Northwest as a bomb cyclone batters the West Coast. And this morning, more than 300,000 people there are waking up without power.
Back here on the East Coast, the Northeast is finally getting drenched with some much-needed rain after weeks of historic drought conditions.
NBC News correspondent Sam Brock is in Brooklyn, New York. Sam, good morning. Just how are things looking there right now? Talk about the timeline for this storm.
Yeah, Joe, Savannah, good morning. Right now, there's not much rain, but we got a drenching, as you said, overnight. It was very steady, and the expectation is somewhere in the range of 2 to 3 inches through tomorrow. That may not sound like a lot, guys, but the New York metro area was in a 7 to 9 inch deficit just for the fall over the course of the last couple of months. You mentioned, Joe, I'm standing in Prospect Park. Only a few weeks ago, portions of this park were engulfed in flames, one of about 300 plus fires that New York City has battled since the beginning of the month. And according to the city, between November 1st and November 14th, the 271 fires from Brooklyn to the Bronx and beyond is a record for the area. It has been 22 years, guys, since we have seen an emergency drought warning here in the New York metro. So obviously the need is dire in terms of getting some precipitation that did come in overnight. And while it's not going to end the drought, it will certainly lower the risk for brush fires and wildfires right now. And that is absolutely the news that you wanted to hear, as it's extended not just throughout the state, but also New Hampshire, Rhode Island, all sorts of areas of New England have dealt with drought conditions and fire. So at least you're getting a little bit of relief from that this morning.
And it cannot be overstated how startling those pictures were of that fire in Prospect Park. For people who don't know, it's a park literally right in the middle of New York City in Brooklyn. Sam, is this rain enough to help with the drought conditions here?
So it is going to make a difference ultimately when you look at sort of the stages of this, Savannah. Mayor Adams was laying this out yesterday. As we mentioned, the first time in a couple of decades we're here in an emergency warning. When it gets to the next level, which is a drought emergency, then you have restrictions that come into play. So we're not there quite yet. But let me run you through some of the biggest changes. Certainly permits for fireworks. That's something the city came out and said there's none of that, especially as we head into the holiday season. No open flames throughout the New York metro area. That's not allowed as well. And they're calling right now for voluntary conservation, people to try to be more conscious about how long their showers are, how long they leave the water faucet open. That becomes mandatory restrictions if we get to that next stage. But hopefully the rain here will prevent that from happening.
All right. Sam, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Let's get a closer look at all this with your Morning News Now weather.
Yeah, meteorologist Michelle Grossman is here with the latest. Just both coasts facing all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah, that's right. We're really active on both coasts. So let's start with the East Coast, because Sam was talking about the drought conditions, and we will put a little dent in. It's not going to erase the drought, as Sam mentioned, but we need this rain, and we're going to see the beneficial rain continuing. So we had heavy rain overnight. This is what it looks like, that first season of rain where we haven't really seen rain since September, and a first winter storm. Some people are going to see 10, 15 inches of snow, even up to 20 inches of snow in the Northeast. But we're looking at also really gusty conditions. It's going to be chilly as well. So kind of back to that November feel. On the West Coast, we have a back-to-back storm systems that are coming through, and we're going to see an atmospheric river, kind of a plume of moisture moving into northwestern California. And we're looking at a whole lot of rain there. We're going to see flooding events. We're going to see mudslides, landslides, really tough travel there. So as we go throughout time here, those are going to be the big stories as we head throughout the next couple of days. Starting starting in the west, we're looking at heavy rain falling right now. It's really confined to northern California, even seeing that snow falling. Again, feet of snow in portions of the west where we could see up to 5 feet of snow in some spots. The Cascades will see snow, the Rockies, northern Rockies especially, and also the Sierra Nevada mountains. We're looking at rain. We could see up to 12 inches in some spots, so measuring rain in feet as well over the next several days. This is what it looks like for today. An intense band of moisture targeting the northwest, heavy coastal flooding. That's going to be the same case tomorrow. It's going to be unsettled over the next few days. We're going to see most of that rain into the central California region tomorrow. And then Saturday, we're still unsettled with rain and snow continuing as well. The highest amounts in those darker colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, again, confined really to northern California over the next several days. And snowfall totals above 3 feet where you see those pinks and purples. Now, because of all this moisture, we do have a flood risk over the next day and also on Friday. Rock and landslides along the roadways, really tough travel there. This is what it looks like for Friday where you see those darker colors. That is the likeliest chance of seeing that flooding conditions. The Northeast, this is the biggest rain we've seen. We needed this. The windshield wipers were going this morning, and that is good news because this is very beneficial rain. But look what happens as we go throughout tomorrow. We stay unsettled because this is going to retrograde back. So it's kind of going to stay in place. It's going to link up with the area of low pressure off the coast, and that's going to keep us wet until Wednesday. We're going to have until Saturday, excuse me. We're going to have some lulls, but keeping us damp, which is nice because we do need this rainfall.
This is one of those situations where people normally don't like rain, but I think everyone feels like, oh, good, rain. We need the rain right now.
Felt like that driving in, pounding on the road. My windshield wipers were going fast, and I was like, nope, I'm not going to complain.
When I took my dog out and it's pitch black and it's like in the 4 a.m. hour, I'm usually not happy. And if it's raining. And I was like, wait, we need this. This is great news.
I know.
So it's good to see. All right. Thanks, Michelle.
Sure.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.